Hello everyone and welcome back to AK Academy with a new video about Cosmos DB and developing modern cloud applications with Azure and .NET. Today in this topic we will talk about how to query the data or the documents within an Azure Cosmos DB. I will get started by creating a very basic and simple database and then create a container, set about few records or few documents. After that we will start to see what Azure Cosmos DB provide for us. So to get started with that, make sure you have the Azure Cosmos DB emulator on your machine if you don't have an Azure account. I prefer to work on that locally, so in this case you don't need to wait online for everything. Here it's faster and you can create as many databases as you want. Okay, so basically to get started, just make sure you have the Azure Cosmos DB emulator working in your machine. Search for Azure Cosmos DB emulator, run it, and just wait a few seconds and it's going to be ready for you. After that, the browser will open to this URL and you will go to this page. So this is all the keys you want to deal with your database from the code, and this is what we are going to do in the next video. But for now, I will go to the Explorer here, then I will click on a new database. Okay, let's give it an ID. I will call it people DB. Then provision throughput and set the throughput 400 request unit per second. Then I click OK. Okay, that's good. So this is our database here. Right now, let's click on new container. Okay, make sure to select the people DB and let's call the container. I'll call them again, I'll call them people. Okay, outside the partition key, basically here we'll have a set of people. Our document is going to consists of ID, first name, last name, salary, city, and array of children for each person. So basically, I'm going to set the partition key to /city, which is the best one for our case. Okay, so after that, make sure to click OK, and right now our database is ready. Let's click on the people container to see what we have here. Okay, after you click on that, you'll see set of settings, stored procedures, triggers, user-defined functions, and other things. Right now, our concentration is going to be here on the items, and especially on the query window. So before we get started the querying, we have to have some data. So I will just make sure to insert about 3-4 documents for testing. I will set the ID for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'll type some properties like first name, then last name. Okay, sorry. Let's set salary like that. We have city, and we will have children, and this one is going to be an array. So array of every children is going to be consists of 2 properties, name and of course age. Okay, let's make this one 12. I'll copy another object. Okay, the data here is very flexible, not like SQL or relational database in general, because right now you have all the freedom to set all your properties and like the nested things. In this case, like we have one to many. So in this case, we have here, this is how we can have multiple items related for a specific document. And even this, here we have an object, and this one is an array, and this array is a set of objects as well. So let's make this 8. Okay, that's great. This is enough. I won't add more properties. I will use the website called Fake Name Generator just to have a names a little quickly. So I'll click on generate, I'll copy this one, paste it here. Okay, so here we have a full document. What I have to do right now is just clicking save here, and here we go. Our document has been created successfully. As you can see, the partition key is city, and for this document it's going to be Florence. So I will copy the properties from here to here, then I will click on new item, and I will paste them again. I will repeat the same process. So this is another document, and I'll click Save. Okay, so I'll just add a third one. But for this one, I'll just have an empty children. So I'll click Save again. So this is good. Right now I have 3 documents. I can make all the required queries and the functions I want to call for this demo. So right now, to start querying this, we have to go click here on New SQL Query. Okay, that's good. As I've said before, basically, this is an developed version for Azure Cosmos DB from Transact SQL. So it has specific functions and, let's say, syntax to support querying JSON documents. So in this case, basically, if we just call this one, select star from C, which means select all the properties like the normal SQL from C, the container, which is in this case people. So basically, click execute, and this is the result you'll get. It's basically an array of JSON, contains 3 objects. The first one, second one, and the third one. Okay, that's good. Let's see, what if I want to get only the ID that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically, you can use the traditional where close. Of course, you are familiar with that if you are an SQL developer. ID equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, click execute query, and we'll get an error. Okay, sorry, we have just to say c.id, execute, and this is the first element we get. And of course, you can use other things. For example, we can say that salary is bigger than 8,000, and you can use some operators here, some operators, sorry. So you can combine multiple conditions, and as well, salary is bigger than 8,000, and city equals to, sorry, c.city equals to Florence. Okay, let's click execute, and we will get nothing. Okay, let's try to execute this one. Sorry, this one. So yeah, because the salary here is less than 8,000 and the city is Florence, let's try something else. Okay, like that, click execute, and you will get this one. So that's good. Of course, you are maybe familiar with that, but I just wanted to start with this to see that it's pretty similar with the SQL. And also we have many functions supporting here in Azure Cosmos DB that makes the querying process very interesting. Let's see what we have. Basically, if I want to get, for example, the total salaries I have of those people. So what I can do is just basically say count or sum, sorry, which is a function. This is how you can call a function, just like SQL, and type c.salary. So in this case, you will get the total salaries of all the people here within this container, which is 24,000 with 950. So that's good. In this case, we can call functions. We can also call another functions like count, for example, click execute query, and that's it. We have also another queries. For example, let's do that again. I'll add star, I'll type where close again, and I'll type where. We have some functions related to the string to see how we can deal with the string. One of the functions called starts with. Okay, so in this case, this will return true or false whether the passing string here starts with a specific letter or no, or specific string. I'll type first name, return only the string that starts with ma. So in this case, click execute query, and of course I will get Mary here because the first name consists of Mary. Of course, you also have ends with and some other functions. I will mention all of this in the blog post on my website. You can find the link in the description box below to have a look at most of the functions existing here to deal with the string. So that's good. And it is pretty easy again also. So now let's move to something else. Let's see here. Let's talk about aliasing. It's also just like SQL. I'll make that again count c.id. Or you can make star to count all the people here you have in the container. I'll click execute selection, and basically I've got 3. But as you can see, this one had a $1. It doesn't have a name, this is an auto-generated name. So to give this c.id as total count. Okay, let's click execute query, and here we go. We will get total count equals to 3 within a JSON object. That's good. So right now, let's see if we want to retrieve a customized JSON. What can we do? Okay, that's also a very important feature in the NoSQL databases. So what we have to do is, for example, we want to return a JSON document that contains 2 properties, the ID and the full name. So what we can do is we can write 2 curly brackets, then I'll type ID, c.id, sorry, like that. Then I'll type full name. Yeah, you can just construct the JSON response in the way you want. I'll type c.firstname for now. Okay, let's run that. And this is what we get. An array of 3 objects. The first one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Charles, 6, 5, 2, 5 Mary, and the last one Willie. That's good. Let's see here. We can use the concat function to concatenate a string to construct the full name. I can use like that, concat, let's pass c.firstname, then a little space here, and the last name here, and it's going to be ready. Let's call execute query, and here we go. Right now we have concatenated the first name and the last name together to construct the full name. That's good. Okay, here also we can use as, for example, person or something like this. So you can call this object. Okay, so that's great. What also we have is we can see, or we can deal with logical operators here while constructing this one. For example, I'll use something called count or array length, sorry, array length. This one retrieves the length of a specific array. So I'll type c.children. I'll type has children. Sorry for that. Has children. So in this case, what we can do, just like C#, we can use this operator. If array length is bigger than 0, then return it true. Other than that, return false. So let's click execute query again, and here we go. As you can see, we have the first one, ID, full name, Charles paired, and has children, true. It has 2 children. And Mary, she has 1 children, but Willie doesn't have any children, so it returns false. So that's very interesting as well. You can manipulate things the way you want. It's very, very flexible and very fast at the same time. So that's great. We can also do many things. Right now, we have to talk about one of the most powerful features of using NoSQL databases. Not only Azure Cosmos DB, but even MongoDB or Cassandra DB, whatever. But one of the greatest features of using NoSQL is, let's imagine a specific scenario. In the real-world applications, business app or whatever, you always need to change the schema or to update your application. But while using the traditional relational database, every change to the schema of the database requires a lot of work. For example, you have this table, but as SQL, so you have a first name, last name as an mvar char50, last name mvar char50, salary decimal, city, and children is in a separated table, contains name and age, because in a specific moment, we have decided to add, for example, the job. You want to have the job for the new customers. So what you have to do in SQL is go add the Java property for the model, then apply the migrations, update the database, you have to update the required code. This is in the case that you are just adding a new property. But sometimes you are adding or modifying an existing property, and this causes a lot of headache. In addition to that, sometimes, especially when you add something new and there is some conflicts or like requires more and more code, you have to pay attention everywhere. While in NoSQL, things is very, very easy. For example, here we will have a job. So I'll type like that, software developer. Then just do like this. Yeah, that's pretty easy. But if I click update, what's gonna happen now? This property is basically right now, it has been indexed directly. So I can query that property even if it's existing only in one item or in multiple items and not existing in other items. So what can I do here is, for example, where c.job equals software developer, and yeah, let's make the where clause here, click execute, and here we go, it returns Charles. That was very easy. We have just added the property here and we can query it directly because it has been indexed. And this is also, there is another huge benefit of that. For example, when you are developing an app that requires a lot of dynamic data, for example, e-commerce, when you have an online store and you are storing multiple products, not only a specific type of products, for example, you are not only selling laptops, so not all the products has the same properties. For example, when you have a laptop, so the properties are clear. For example, what is the power of the CPU, the speed, the RAM, the hard disk. So you have a set of properties. But what if you have, what if you are selling or your customers wants an app that, or an online e-commerce website, but they are selling laptops, they are selling TVs, mobile phones, or maybe it's a general store. So sometimes every category or sometimes every product has its own properties. If you want to do that in SQL, you have to create a table, a column within the product table, and you type this property as JSON and store them as string. Okay, that works, but that requires more work and you cannot query that data. While here, it's pretty simple. You can add, for example, this document is for laptop, you can here have the CPU, the RAM, and whatever, but if you have another document which is TV or a screen, you can basically have the resolution, the maker, or whatever. Every set of category or every product can have their own properties, and that's pretty easy. The properties being indexed directly, and you can here just call it. So we have also here some functions to deal with that, to deal with arrays, and to deal with the objects. One of those functions is object, is defined, is string, is boolean. So let's use them here. I'll say where is defined like that. I'll type c.job. So return all the object that has the job defined there. Click execute query and it will return Charles, but where is defined equals to vols. So click execute query. In this case, you will get Mary and Willie. Yeah, that's great. We have also another bunch of functions. I will make sure to mention as much as I can of those within the blog post, but the using and the usage of that is similar to this we are doing here. So that was actually a very basic introduction to querying the data. This is some general concept how you can deal with the NoSQL databases and querying the data, but of course Azure Cosmos DB provides more and more. We will talk specifically in a specific video about the great function that Azure Cosmos DB provides to us related to the spatials and geolocations. It has a set of specific functions to deal with the maps, to deal with the cities or geolocations in general in a very, very powerful way. that's being very useful for apps like tracking or taxi, delivery, or whatever, everything related to the maps. It has a set of great functions and structures within it. So we will talk about this in a specific video, but for now, you can say it's an introduction. So you can right now create some documents, manipulate them, and try to query those data the way you want. Yeah, but before we leave, something to mention. In this case, when you add some properties, you can have, for example, this document doesn't have a job, and this one also doesn't have the job. So what you can do is you can use version property, and you call this one v1 update. Let's set it here as well. So, let's click update, and here after we add the job property, I will add version 2. So in this case, this is a good example to follow your documents and to know the version and the structure of each of the documents, especially when you are upgrading your project. So you can, instead of depending on this, which is some properties related to the logic, you can depend on version. So you can say, okay, I know that version 2 is for the contains job, so you can say where c.version equals v2. So in this case, you will get, I haven't updated that. Okay. Yeah. So here we get Charles because you have defined the version, and this is much way easier to follow your documents or the updated new one with the structure. So thank you so much for your watching, and I hope you enjoyed that. And right now you can go create some documents and play with NoSQL and JSON documents with Azure Cosmos DB. In the next video, we will start dealing with Azure Cosmos DB from .NET. We will create a full CRUD operation, but from ASP.NET Core API project. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to support us by hitting the subscribe and like button, and also don't forget to check the blog you can find the link in the description box. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.